Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to the Fisdom Wealthcast. Today with us we have an extremely special guest, Mr. Anoop Bhaskar, who is the head of Equities at IDFC Mutual Fund. So Anoop, a very warm welcome to the Fisdom
Thank
Wealthcast.
thank
So
you.
Anup,
Uh, uh,
without any further ado, let me ask you the question of the hour, or probably the question of the decade or century per se. हालतें बदलती है, volatility आती जाती रहती है, and markets, especially in the past month and the past week and the past 2 days, has been showing very different colors, right? And there's
yeah.
just one question that people always seem to have on their mind: market क्या बोलता है? So आपके हिसाब से, from your perspective, market क्या बोलता है?
No, market's telling us to respect fundamentals and not to be treating this game as a T20 and treat it like a test match. Nobody has become a billionaire in 15 days time of trading, and nobody will. So it's a time to realize that this is a long-term game, and long-term really means that you will have ups and downs, and the downs also have to be taken along with the ups. You can't expect that markets will only keep doing well. So there's only one Donald Bradman uh, who had an average of 99. Uh, he, and even great players who had average of 50 or 55 have had innings where they scored 0 or 2 uh, or fewer runs than the average. So so from that point of view, the market is just cautioning all the investors who believe that stocks should double every year or every 6 months, and they should get a new tip every week. This is the time to slow down and uh, be a little bit more careful. I can't.
Can you hear me now? Am
Yeah.
I audible?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel that you have pointed it out very correctly. I feel respecting fundamentals is extremely important, and I feel more than anything else, at least the recent bouts of volatility has taught us the importance of being humble, right? Humility, knowing that you don't know everything is
Yeah.
extremely important, especially काफी रिटेल जो ट्रेडर्स होते हैं, रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स होते हैं, उनके लिए ये मार्केट एक आई ओपनर रहा है, स्पेशली रिसेंट टाइम्स में। आई फील 1 डेढ़ महीने की ही बात है जब निफ्टी ने ऑल टाइम हाई टच करा था, न्यू हाई।
Mm.
Bank Nifty breached a lifetime high, and today we see there's almost bloodshed since the past couple of days. So what do you think changed between that lifetime high and the bloodshed that we are seeing now?
No, I think so. There is no event that has happened except we've had one more, rate hike by the U.S. Fed. We've had one rate hike in India, but those were all on expected lines. So there is nothing which is a surprise event which has occurred, which can, be pointed to as the reason for this bad behavior of the market. It's just that when it comes. It looks very bad. So it's like a diet. Everybody wants to go on a diet, but when you go through a diet, it's very painful, and you miss out on eating all your favorite things, and then you want to go back to the old way. So corrections are like that. Most people want it, but when you get one, you don't want to be part of it. So everyone says correction is always healthy, but I've never found uh, 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 that those times when the market corrects, that people feel happy about it. So it's part of the game, so you have to take it. You can't.
Absolutely, Anup. I feel that's the nature of the beast, and
Mm,
that's the beast we all love and intended to love
mm,
anyway, no matter what, right? So I
mm.
feel now is the time when we are really testing everyone's commitment to the investments that they have been making. So, Anup, another very important thing I wanted to gain your perspectives on or get your perspectives on was that ये काफी चर्चा चल रहा है कि इंडिया के जो मार्केट्स है उसके वैल्यूएशंस बहुत स्टीप हो रखा है, बहुत रिच वैल्यूएशन हो चुका है अब। And there are talks about Indian equities are getting money because there's no real alternative apart from that right now, but the moment the world opens up, the money will start flowing out of there. काफी हेडलाइंस में ये छप के आ रहा है कि शायद वैल्यूएशंस के चलते और रिच वैल्यूएशंस के चलते काफी एफपीआई आउटफ्लो भी कर जा सकता है. So there are a lot of talks about India being relatively expensive, and all the more expensive when you compare it with the emerging markets pack. And it's a fact that we are trading at a premium. But do you think it is irrational premium, or how do you view it? Is it at a premium at all, आपके हिसाब से?
No, no, I think so. We are facing a unique problem which we've not faced too many times in our career. That when you look at जब आप हमारी history देखेंगे last 15 साल की, तो our valuations 1 year forward are not out of sync, because each of the last 15 years we've started the year with earnings growth expectation of 20%, because we are very optimistic, especially in the stock market, and all the analysts always believe 20% is somehow the other the number that we'll achieve. So when you look at a 20% upside from earning, then the valuation was around 19 times 1 year forward, which is not very expensive. We have traded and in the past at 20 times, 21 times, we've gone up to 22 times. But what has happened is that CY22 has been a year where the rest of the world has had a very big correction, and our markets haven't fallen. We are among the top three markets in terms of returns as such, both in terms of local currency as well as in dollar terms. So when you are flattish to positive, and in almost all other markets are down between 10 to 20% on a relative basis, suddenly you look very expensive. And in the case of emerging market, China is the largest market, and China, if I'm not mistaken, was down more than 20% or 25% for the year, and therefore it was very cheap. Today, the Chinese index itself is close to around 11, 12 times, and we are at 19 times 1 year forward. So I think so. Our success in CY22 has been the main bone for contention for us looking very expensive as such. So I would say that compared to the historical context, when you are a pure Indian investor who actually does invest only in India, the markets don't scare you. But if you are a global investor who has option to invest across markets, across various asset classes, then India stands out. But that is one end of the equation. The other end of the equation is India, within the case of emerging market, has been among the best performing market for the last 10 years. So while we are expensive, have been expensive, we've also delivered returns. And therefore, I don't think that foreign investors can go to zero in India. So their stock of total stock that they own in India is close to around $300 billion. They have taken out around $30 billion in the last year or so, or it's around $600 billion, and they've taken out 5%. And if you were to ask this question in 2014-15, that if in a year we have $30 billion of exit of foreigners, do you think this market would be positive for the year, or 10% or negative 30%? Most of your viewers would have voted for the third or the second option, and not the first option. So that is where the power of retail flows and domestic flows have helped India survive this bit of onslaught of foreigner selling. So just to come back to the original questions, we are more expensive in the global context because the rest of the world has seen a big correction for various reasons. In US, you've had a very sharp jump in terms of interest rates from less than 1% now to 4%, which is a very sharp jump in just a period of 3 quarters as such. If you look at the rate of inflation in US, CPI is higher than India CPI, which I'm sure in our career we've not seen. You are much younger than me. I have a slightly longer time horizon. So normally India would be 200 to 300 bips higher inflation than US, which is why if you look at just our currency would go and depreciate by 400 500 bips. matlab, there every year as such. So there are very different 2022 has been a very different scenario as compared to the past, and we cannot take one example of 1 year to say that things have changed, and therefore we can't take this as the new normal. India, when you are at this kind of valuation on a global scale, you will look more expensive. But for the case of Indian investors, again, I would reiterate, it is not out of the normal. It is expensive, but it is not blaring any red signal that one needs to go and reduce equity allocation.
So would it be fair to say that India is slightly expensive at this moment, but high quality comes at a cost? Would that be quite a statement to make?
So I would say that we are expensive, and the worrying thought is when the structure of the market is not correct. So in 2017, the small cap index was trading at a trailing PE higher than the Nifty.
Correct.
So when you see those kind of structures where the small cap trades at the highest valuation, followed by mid cap, followed by large cap, then one needs to be a bit more careful that such kind of market structures cannot sustain,
Understood.
which are signs of a bubble. So we don't see bubbles across the market in terms of valuation. As I as I have mentioned in some of our quarterly, we have small pockets of where we see that local investors have become more confident. I'll say, I don't want to use a stronger word, and those pockets you would have seen in the last few days, they have also fallen the most.
Right.
So wherever valuations have moved ahead of what the company's earnings or the sector's earnings would be, there are those pockets, but in terms of the overall market, I don't see that we have a structure where one needs to worry about that situation still.
Absolutely. So, Anup, this brings me to the next leg of the same question. Now that you have justified valuation, we'll have to break this down,
Hmm.
and let's talk sectors for a bit.
Okay.
So during the year, there were various sectors that were really beaten down, and at the same time, there are certain sectors that enjoyed thorough favor of the markets. So, in fact, for instance, we could talk about the banking and financial
Yeah.
services who had quite a rally, and within that. There's the public sector pack
Hmm.
that also did phenomenally well, and that seems to be a theme that has been playing out, and probably there's hardly anyone on the street really doubting the prospects of this as a sector. But according to you,
Hmm.
going ahead, stepping into the new calendar year as well, and as we are at the cusp of a fuller recovery, ceteris paribus, everything else remaining constant,
Hmm.
which sectors do you think are in the first order of benefiting of the conducive economic situations that lie ahead of us?
देखिए, regarding banks, one has to step back a little bit and look at it, that during the pandemic, from the case of March 2020 till around September of 21, or till December 21, banks as a sector have not done well. They have actually lagged the market for reasons which were correct, because there was worry at the time of the pandemic in March 2020 that banks will face a lot of high credit costs because NPS will increase. Government had announced this program, of actually 6 month moratorium. It was a 3 month, then it was extended by another 3 months, and that made most investors realize that it's very difficult to assess what is the kind of credit loss that banks will have during the pandemic. So from April 2020 till at least April or June 21, banks have not participated in the rally which has happened in the broader market. Unlike 2012 to 2020, when banks have outperformed the Nifty every year, some segment of the banks, mainly retail focused banks, or the case of insurance companies, or the case of the NBFCs, have given investors superlative returns. So the uh, the performance of banks has come in the last 2 quarters, when the fear of uh, first the pandemic has reduced. We have gone back to normal life to some extent. Now, of course, there is new worry coming from China once again, uh, and the credit cost that the banks and NBFCs had to incur for losses during pandemic has turned out to be much lower compared to what they had provided for. तो अभी क्या है कि over the next 2 or 3 quarters, banks will have a very low cost of credit. So in terms of provisions will go down, and therefore there will be a sharp jump in terms of profit for them. And that cycle should sustain at least till March 23, and going forward at least for a few more quarters, though uh, in terms of the rate of change or the growth in profit rate might come down. Second is PSU banks. So PSU banks were a very special group of banks where the losses from 2014 to 2020 have been unparalleled. The government in various twice has infused record amount of capital into these banks, close to around 10-12 lakh crores. And today, when you look at a PSU bank from a financial balance sheet point of view, they have provision coverage which is similar to the case of private sector banks. Uh, they have a credit deposit ratio which is lower than private sector banks at sub 70%, which means that they can lend at a faster pace than some of the private sector banks without requiring to raise more equity. And third is that the credit cost over the last 1 year have been much lower than what was being expected by investors. So on all these counts, they have done much better than what was feared for. In for the period ending September 30th, 2022, aggregate profits of PSU banks were higher than the aggregate profits of private sector banks, whereas the market cap of private sector banks still is multiple times that of PSU banks. So I think so. In the market, there is a rule which I think so that you can't just overlook, is that profits are sacrosanct. And if one segment of the market continues to report very healthy profits, then it will uh, have some amount of valuation benefit that it will get, and which is where the PSU banks are today. So over the next 4 to 6 quarters, I think so this journey of PSU banks should continue. And if they are able to revitalize their operations and become technology savvy, which is a question mark, because uh, the key, because of various reasons, I will not get into that because it becomes too long a debate then on or discussion on that one issue. But we believe that over the next few quarters, PSU banks as a group will continue to see some bit, of improvement in profitability, which may be better than what is the expectation of investors, and therefore they could do well and sustain the move that they have had in FY 23 or CY 22, despite uh, जो जो उनके साथ हुआ है लास्ट 2 दिन के अंदर. But that doesn't mean it will be all PSU banks. You will have to grade them by size and by quality, and stay away from the smaller ones where the longer term survival issue remains a question mark.
Absolutely. So, I feel I completely agree and corroborate with your analysis there. I feel there's a structural, a certain sense of buoyancy in the environment, especially for banks. And जैसे कि आपने starting में कहा था कि now is a great time for the interest margins to improve. अगर देखा जाए तो in credit cycle uptick हो रहा है, demand बढ़ रहा है. And these banks have access to low cost capital, like generally all banks. And with public sector banks having access to low cost funds, greater access to low cost funds, and their ability to lend credit at competitive rates, I feel this is all of these factors culminate into some really strong outlook for these two packs, banks as a sector, and public sector banks even within it. I feel that's so there's some great things in store for the banking sector. इसके साथ ही साथ काफी ऐसे सेक्टर्स है जो कि बहुत ही ट्रबल्ड रहे हैं ओवर द पास्ट कपल ऑफ मंथ्स ईयर्स, लाइक जैसे कि आप आईटी की बात करें या फार्मा की बात करें, तो इन सेक्टर्स पे आपके क्या ओपिनियन है?
So I think the pharma as a sector has had ने बहुत अच्छा किया है फ्रॉम द केस ऑफ अप्रैल 2020 से लेके जो दिसंबर 21 तक. आई थिंक so in a period of 6 quarters, it was the best performing sector at least 5 out of the 6 quarters, or was in the two best performing quarters for all 6 quarters as such. And I think so. वहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा worry है about US, because for most of the IT companies, US is 60 to 70% of their revenue, and almost every knowledgeable person in the stock market, leave alone if they are trained in economics, believes that US will get into a recession in CY23. तो अगर US will get into a recession in CY23, then the companies will also have some bit of challenge to protect their profitability, and therefore the kind of IT spend they were doing during the pandemic can be slowed down because of the fear that their profitability is going down. And this is the fear which largely has seeped into the worries for this sector. कि जब किसी सेक्टर में कोई कंपनी की मैनेजमेंट अगले साल की रेवेन्यू की विजिबिलिटी के बारे में कुछ बोलने से झिझकाए, तो आपको फिर डर लगता है कि अगर उसकी वैल्यूएशन जो है निफ्टी से ज़्यादा है, और अर्निंग आउटलुक CY24 का हेजी है, it is not very clear. So then why would you want to continue to own? So if you look at the IT sector, by December 21, almost every fund and almost most schemes had some amount of overweight on IT within their portfolio. Very few schemes had started to reduce their weight in IT from October, when they peaked, to the time December happened. If you remember, October to December was also the period when in India for the first time we had some of these companies which are in the field of which are uh, those which are called new age companies, e-commerce companies, had got listed, and their valuations were all time high. There was one very large IPO of a company which is supposed to be a fintech, where there was a great amount of uh, positivity. So all these factors on hindsight, जब आप पीछे मुड़ के देखें तो आप कहेंगे इतना आसान था, सेक्टर का वैल्यूएशन पीक पे था, CY24 की अर्निंग्स का किसको पता नहीं था, और आप लोगों ने बेचा नहीं तब सारा का सारा अपना होल्डिंग. सो इक्विटी मार्केट और स्टॉक इन्वेस्टिंग के अंदर अगर कोई आपको एक वरदान दे, वो ये है कि अगर आप कल जाके मतलब देख सकते हैं पहले, एक दिन पहले, तो फिर आप कभी लॉस नहीं करेंगे. तो प्रॉब्लम होता है कि उस टाइम पे आपको लगता है कि ये सेक्टर ने 6 क्वार्टर से आपको रिटर्न दिए हैं, तो यू शुड होल्ड ऑन टू इट. And in IT is one sector where there is no concern on company or in terms of management, in terms of corporate governance, in terms of cash flow generation, in terms of dividend payouts. So it is very natural for actually for a fund manager to say that though there could be a slowdown in CY24, I will still hold on to my position because these are good quality companies, and therefore, why uh, why go and reduce the weight now and then I have to again go and increase weight in CY23 in June, July, when the fear of recession goes off. So first is IT के अंदर, because of this worry of US economy, there has been uh, a big correction. Between January and March 23, the index itself was down by 25-26%. Whether it was large cap, whether it was mid cap, small cap, all companies within IT were down by more than 25% in one quarter. So it's and those and the situation hasn't changed. तो अभी भी किसी को CY23 और FY24 के बारे में उतना कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है कि वो कहें कि कंपनीज की ग्रोथ या सेक्टर की ग्रोथ 12% या 15% होगी. सो आई थिंक सो टिल दिस क्लैरिटी टेक्स टाइम टू इवॉल्व, द सेक्टर will still struggle. If you are a real long-term investor, then you are not bothered about it. But while we are all long-term investor, we have daily NAV, so we have to balance the two as such. कि we can't take too long a view and we can't be too short term in our view. So I would still be very careful in selecting companies or giving a higher weight to this sector at this point of time. Coming to pharma, I think so again, pharma sector did well or did the best between April 2020 and December 2020, when the first wave of the pandemic hit, and there was a shortage of medicine, and Indian companies were able uh, to be to go and supply that. And what they did not say as much, and what we as analysts did not ask enough, was how much of this growth in sales has come from price and how much of it has come from volume. तो वॉल्यूम ज़्यादा बढ़ी नहीं, लेकिन प्राइस बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया। और जब CY 22 के अंदर थिंग्स नॉर्मलाइज्ड, और जब यूएस के अंदर उन्होंने देखा कि उनके पास बहुत सारा स्टॉक है सारा मेडिसिन का, उन्होंने फ्यूचर सेल बंद कर दिया, एडिशनल इंक्रीमेंटल सेल कम कर दिया, तो तब से प्राइसेस गिर रहे हैं। और अभी भी यूएस जेनरिक के प्राइसेस अभी तक गिरने बंद नहीं हुए हैं। सो कंपनीज जिनका यूएस जेनरिक में सेल 50-60% ऑफ द टोटल सेल्स है, उनका अभी भी when you look at their results are still not showing growth over the previous year. YOY growth अभी भी नहीं उनका आ रहा है, इसलिए the sector has not done well. अभी वो यूएस में प्राइसेस गिरना इस क्वार्टर या अगले क्वार्टर इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू फोरकास्ट, बट वो प्राइसेस जीरो तो नहीं होंगे. They can't keep falling till they go to zero. So it is again a sector where if one has a very long-term view, then it is a good time to. But there is no sector call on pharma, क्योंकि अभी it is all individual company based rather than a sector call कि you are saying I'm positive on the sector. Pharma में आप call नहीं ले सकते, क्योंकि there is another element which has emerged in the last 5 years, is that US FDA comes and does inspection of plants in India. Now, we as investors can't tell which company's plant will get uh, कि कब inspection होगी, और वो वाली जो होगी inspection का क्या होगा, outcome क्या होगा, that we can't forecast. So there is a additional layer for investors which you don't have control on. So therefore it becomes a little random कि आप चार कंपनी चूज करें और वो चारों के प्लांट हो जाए इंस्पेक्ट सेम क्वार्टर में, और जो है चारों के ऊपर कोई अगर ऑब्जर्वेशन आ जाए यूएस की, तो वो चारों कंपनीज डाउन हो जाएंगी उसी क्वार्टर में. तो इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू टेक अ कॉल ऑन अ सेक्टर. यू विल हैव टू चूज कंपनीज वेयर they are more India focused, where they are more US focused, and have a combination of the two, and play with and then invest around that.
Absolutely. So, Anup, we just spoke about probably the hottest sectors that have been in the headlines since quite some time now. हमने financial service banking की बात की, public sector banks की बात की, हमने IT और pharma की बात की. But now I want to ask you, आपके हिसाब से going into 2023, what are the sectors or the themes that you are looking at as a very promising contender, or at least two or three such sectors or themes that you are really confident about going ahead? It could be the same or something different.
So I think so. From a sector point of view, at this stage, it's very difficult to pinpoint something which has not been क्या था identified by others. तो आपको लगेगा ये बहुत बोरिंग है अगर आप 5 फंड मैनेजर्स का CY 23 का सेक्टर आउटलुक पढ़ेंगे, तो 5 में से 5 के 3 या 4 सेक्टर कॉमन होंगे. And that is a reflection of where our economy is, where the market valuations are, uh, uh, and I think so, therefore we are not at a period like 2020 or even 2021 where you could play certain themes. So the 2021 May theme was to play actually, when the pandemic uh, reduces, what will be the sector that will benefit from people going out of their houses. जो सब लोग घर में बैठे थे, जब वो बाहर निकलेंगे, तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ ओपनिंग आउट themes played very well. Hotel sector, tourism, travel. अभी एक जो theme which everyone was very bearish on last 6 months में या last 12 months में has been rural consumption. For whatever reasons, and everyone you ask will give you three different reasons or rationale on why rural consumption is down. But मेरा थोड़ा सिंपल पॉइंट है कि पिछले 1 साल में कहीं पे कोई बारिश की प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुई है, कहीं पे कोई क्रॉप फेलियर की आवाज़ नहीं कहीं हुई है, और कहीं पे क्रॉप प्राइसेस नहीं गिरे हैं कि आपने जब क्रॉप लगाया था तो प्राइस 100 था, और जब आपने हार्वेस्ट किया तो उसका इंटरनेशनल प्राइस गिर के 70 हो गया, तो फार्मर्स आर एट लॉस. So we've had very good agricultural income in CY22, but it has not translated into rural consumption. अब इसके क्या रीजंस हैं? देखिए, मैं तो मुंबई में बैठता हूँ और मैं ज़्यादा घूमता भी नहीं हूँ, तो और ना कोई विलेज से आया हूँ. आई वाज बोर्न इन न्यू दिल्ली, सो आई डोंट हैव एनी विलेज रूट्स टू से दैट आई कैन क्रॉस चेक. सो my view, from what I understand, and I could be wrong, is that a large amount of the surplus income has gone towards repayment of debt, because rural India में 2020-21 में debt थोड़ा बढ़ गया था, and that has been repaid. And when you look at uh, a sector like microfinance, which is focused only on rural credit, or when you look at PSU bank rural credit, you are seeing very good repayment which has come up. So शायद the first round of income generation has gone towards repaying debt and building balance sheet, क्योंकि जो जो फार्मर रूरल एरिया में हैं उनके पास कोई प्रोविडेंट फंड या कोई लॉन्ग टर्म सेविंग्स नहीं होती जिसके ऊपर वो डिपेंड कर सकें ड्यूरिंग टाइम्स ऑफ इमरजेंसी, या उनके पास गोल्ड होता है, या या वो और डेट लेके उसको करते हैं. तो अभी का जो सीजन, जो हार्वेस्टिंग शुरू जो जो खत्म होगी मार्च अप्रैल में, आई एम होपफुल उससे जो इनकम आएगी, that probably will be seen in terms of rural consumption going forward. The second part is during 2020 there was a lot of migration back from urban areas to rural areas, and some studies point that not all of those people have gone back to urban areas, so therefore they are still dependent on income within rural, and therefore the savings in rural have come down. सो जैसे मैंने कहा कि मुझे इसके बारे में उतना डेप्थ में जानकारी नहीं है, बट अगर आप देखिए ग्लोबली एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्ट्स के प्राइसेस नहीं गिर रहे हैं, एंड वी हैव हैड अ reasonably good monsoon even in CY22, so we should have good output coming in March April of 23, which is the main crop. So uska income ka benefit on rural consumption should play out next year. So that is one theme which I think so can be uh, something different from CY22. बाकी बैंकिंग सेक्टर, चाहे उसमें PSU बैंक्स हों या प्राइवेट सेक्टर बैंक्स हों, will play out. Capital goods is another sector which has done very well, और वो उसमें बहुत लिमिटेड प्लेज हैं, बट एंड दे वेरी एक्सपेंसिव ऑल्सो. बट जैसे हम कंपनी से बात कर रहे हैं, इवन विद कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन एट 75-76%, companies, and whether it is large, mid-size or smaller companies or even unlisted MSMEs, medium small enterprises, सबको एक थोड़ा सा पॉजिटिविटी कि जो कुछ जियो पॉलिटिक्स में हो रहा है, चाहे वो चाइना +1 हो या यूरोप +1 हो, इंडिया को एक्सपोर्ट में थोड़ा ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगा. अगेन देर इज नो डेटा ऑन द ग्राउंड. व्हेन यू लुक एट आवर एक्सपोर्ट नंबर्स, दे आर गोइंग डाउन एवरी मंथ. सो इफ यू वर टू आस्क मी कि आपने इतना भाषण दिया है और जब मैं मैक्रो नंबर देखता हूँ तो कोई मैच नहीं करते, तो बट companies are much more positive to invest today, and I think so that is very different from what was there in 2016 to 19 period, ki jisme companies were sitting on projects which had got completed or were not getting completed, and they had lot of debt. तो एक तो कंपनीज के पास आज के टाइम पे डेट बहुत कम है, और बी दे वांट टू एक्सपैंड. सो कैपिटल गुड्स इज वन सेक्टर दैट विल डू वेल. Third is infrastructure, where we think so it is a sector that has most disappointed investors. So कोई भी फोरम में अगर कोई फंड मैनेजर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बोलता है तो उसके ऊपर एटलीस्ट 4 सवाल तो आ ही जाते हैं बाद में, कि आपने क्यों बोला, जब आप 5 साल और 10 साल और 20 साल का ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड देखिए, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ने कोई रिटर्न ही नहीं दिया है. But every time, what we see today on the ground and from the companies, that if you look at contracting companies like L&T or the smaller companies, they have got good order book. They have become well balanced between India and abroad, and B, the profitability has improved quite a lot. तो सबका profit improve हुआ है, debt थोड़ा कम हुआ है, they are generating cash flow, and they have large order book which they, where there is a bit of pressure to complete before the next जो है general elections in May 24. So I think so CY 23 में this is the third smaller group of companies which one should focus on, where valuations are still very reasonable. They trade at 15 times or 18 times 1 year forward versus 19, 20 times for the market. And there is some significant improvement on the balance sheet side over the last 2, 3 years.
So, three sectors, three themes rather, rural consumption, capital goods, and infrastructure. I
Hmm.
feel this is a great starting point for our viewers also to, start researching yourself and start reading up more about it and see how can you really optimize on the time that's to come for these themes and sectors. So, अनु पिछले 2 3 महीने 4 महीने में काफी volatility रही है, at least past
Hmm.
quarter versus this quarter. The sentiments have turned upside down on its head almost. The start of the past quarter and the end of this quarter as we are approaching it. So, quarter over quarter, at least, अगर near term में देखा जाए, so how have your portfolios repositioned themselves? क्या ऐसे changes आपने करे हैं आपके portfolios में to reposition anything? या फिर was it all factored in and
नहीं,
your portfolios?
नहीं, नहीं, वी हैव नॉट फैक्टर्ड इन. इफ वी, अगर हमारे पास इतना स्किल होता कि हम फैक्टर इन कर लेते कि क्या होगा, तो फिर हम बाय वर्क, व्हाई नॉट इन्वेस्ट पर्सनली.
Yeah.
सो आई थिंक सो हमारा यही थॉट रहा है कि मार्केट में मार्केट में बहुत there are very few pockets in the market which will give good returns.
Hmm.
And if you are able to avoid those pockets where there is going to be disappointment, then you are reasonably well off. We don't want to identify all the pockets. Of course, I don't want to say we don't want to, but it is not possible for anyone to identify all the pockets which will do well like they have done. So अगर आप CY 22 का देखिए, PSU banks, auto ancillaries, defense stocks, then उसके बाद private sector banks, uh, fifth will be capital goods, are the 4 or 5 broad areas which have done well. If you were slightly underweight or you didn't have so much of IT or FMCG, consumer FMCG or consumer durable companies, you would have done reasonably well. आपके fund would have done reasonably well. So वैसा ही कुछ CY 23 भी उसी टाइप का मुझे साल लगता है कि आपको आइडेंटिफाई करने पड़ेंगे 3 या 4 पॉकेट्स जिसके अंदर आपको लगे कि अर्निंग सरप्राइज आ सकता है, विच कैन लीड टू री रेटिंग और वेयर इन्वेस्टर्स आर अंडरवेट, and avoid those where investors are already overweight and where there is no where there is very low probability of earning surprise, or in fact they can be earning shock. तो अगर आप अर्निंग शॉक वाली कंपनीज से बच जाएं और आप बाकी 2 या 3 सेगमेंट, 4 5 सेगमेंट होंगे मार्केट के विच विल डू वेल एवरी क्वार्टर और ओवर ओवर द ईयर, so then you will be reasonably off. So that is our thought process as such, and therefore for us at the start of the quarter, our biggest worry has been is we have done well in banks, but we have seen what happened in IT in 2022. After doing very well in 2021, IT fell in 2021. Will banks repeat the same behavior in first quarter or second quarter of CY 23 is the question that we keep debating among our team members. We don't have any answer, but uh, it is an area that we want to be very careful on. Though we are very bullish and we are positive on banks, we also know that every fund scheme, every category, the largest weight is banks, and banks also have the highest beta. तो जब भी मार्केट कभी कोई इवेंट से गिरेगी, तो उस इवेंट में हाईएस्ट बीटा वाला सेक्टर सबसे ज्यादा गिरता है। मार्च 2020 में जैसे जब कोविड का फियर फर्स्ट टाइम आया था, तो बैंक्स वर द सेगमेंट which fell the most, and everyone knew about it. It is not that it took us by surprise, but did we act upon it, or or were we passive this time? So it's a very big challenge कि आपका सबसे बड़ा सेक्टर जिसका सबसे ज्यादा बीटा है और वो हर इवेंट रिस्क में सबसे ज्यादा गिरता है, do you go and pull the trigger now, or do you wait for that period to occur? So it's very difficult question to answer, but this is the dilemma we keep facing, and that is our single biggest area of concern for us, especially अगर आपके पोर्टफोलियो में दो या तीन पीएसयू बैंक्स हैं जिनका बीटा नॉर्मल बैंकिंग सेक्टर से भी ज़्यादा हाई है, तो उसमें आपको और ज़्यादा चौकन्ने रहना पड़ेगा कि किस टाइम पे आपको निकलना चाहिए। So that is one thing that we were very we were more focused on this quarter versus the previous quarter. जो आपने क्वार्टर टू क्वार्टर की बात की, ये that's one area.
Absolutely. Lovely response, Anup. I feel it was fairly elaborate and super insightful. There are also quite a number of questions that are coming up from the audience.
Sure.
Folks, I won't be able to pick all the questions due to time restrictions as always. But please feel free to write to us at research@fisdom.com, and we'll try to help you out in whatever way we can in the best possible way. But still, I'll pick a couple of them. So the first question, Anup, is what are your views on small cap as a segment? At a broad level, how do you view it?
So I think so. As I said at the start, key the structure of the market gives me comfort that we are not in a bubble zone. So therefore, while valuations can be high, they are not at a phase where one needs to be worried. And same thing is about small caps. That there are these pockets, of kind of exuberance within small cap where valuations are very high, where there is lot of trading volume. So I think so. One way to decipher any small bubble in small caps is कि जिन ग्रुप ऑफ स्टॉक्स का वॉल्यूम हर रोज टॉप 10 या टॉप 5 में आ जाता है और बार बार आई जा रहा है, और जिसमें सॉरी जो डिलीवरी वॉल्यूम इज 2-3-5%, बट शेयर ट्रेड हो रहे हैं 1 मिलियन 2 मिलियन और 50,000 शेयर या 2 लाख शेयर की डिलीवरी हो रही है, तो उसमें आपको थोड़ा सा सावधान
सावधानी
रहना
बरतनी
सावधानी बरतनी चाहिए, क्योंकि देन इट इज इन द हैंड्स ऑफ डे ट्रेडर्स, एंड एनी चेंज इन सेंटिमेंट दो स्टॉक्स गेट हिट द मोस्ट। तो जैसे मैंने
right?
बताया कि डिफेंस स्टॉक्स के अंदर जो छोटी वाली कंपनीज हैं, आई डोंट वांट टू नेम देम, बट a lot of some of them have gone up by 60% or 100% last year, and these are not very well researched companies. They are good companies, they are all existing businesses, but the understanding on how they report their revenue, just having a large order book doesn't mean that they will have growth in turnover every year. देखिए डिफेंस के अंदर अगर आपके पास 10,000 करोड़ का ऑर्डर है, इट डजंट मीन कि हर साल आपकी रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ
Right.
होगी. It depends on what is the schedule that you have given for those products to be delivered.
Correct.
So small cap to come back, I think so. I am positive, but one has to be very careful. One has to have a mix of companies which are in the flavor and have companies which are out of flavor. You cannot
Right.
have a portfolio completely of companies in flavor, because then on days like what we have seen today and yesterday, they will be down 20% or 15% in 2 days' time. They will take
Right.
away a large part of your gains. And you can't be in companies completely which are out of favor, because you should have the temperament for that. कि एक एक साल आपका स्टॉक नहीं चले, तो बहुत लोग कहेंगे कि ये तो बहुत हो गया, अभी इससे ज्यादा और कितना वेट करना चाहिए. So you have to have a combination of the two, but the
Right.
sector as always, as most of the time, looks interesting, and it will give good returns if you choose wisely within the companies that are on offer.
Absolutely. So small cap as a segment, the outlook is positive. You are confident about its prospects going ahead. However, it's not going to be as if every counter in the basket is going to work. There are a select few that will lead the entire uptick. So investors must be cautious, do thorough research, and keep and align their picks with their temperament also. So that's the most important takeaway here. So to whoever asked this question, small caps outlook positive, optimistic, but be careful, be selective. And if you get more things right than you get wrong, so that's going to turn out well for you. So I feel that was a wonderful response to a pretty straightforward question, but a not straightforward at the same time. So also another question, Anup, again, it seems straightforward, but I don't think the response could be as straight. So there's this question कि सर सभी लोग कहते हैं कि SIP के थ्रू इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए और हर समय कहते हैं SIP ही बेस्ट है. क्या कभी कोई ऐसा टाइम आता है जब लमसम ज्यादा फायदा दे जाए?
सर ऑफ कोर्स आता है सर, बट उस टाइम आप में हिम्मत होनी चाहिए, एंड हिम्मत के लिए बहुत कम लोग होते हैं, मैं तो नहीं हूँ, तो इसलिए आई विल से दैट अगर आप में हिम्मत थी मार्च 20th या 22nd के आसपास इन 2020 टू इन्वेस्ट लमसम ऑफ मनी when we did not know what COVID was going to be, how it was going to be treated, how widely it would go, you could have retired in 2 years time if you had put in significant amount of capital. तो जब ये पढ़ने में और पिक्चरों में देखने के लिए बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होता है कि किसी ने बिल्कुल बॉटम पे जाके हिम्मत करके सब कुछ दाव पे लगा दिया, बट रियलिटी में वी ऑल have our pulls and pressures. We have career risk, we have family risk, we have our own financial pressures. किसी के पास हाउसिंग लोन होता है जिसका EMI देना होता है, किसी के पास और चीजें होती हैं. There is some marriage in the family which you have to fund after 6 months or 1 year. So yes, there are periods of time, whether it was October of 2008 or March of 2009 or March 2020. But don't feel bad if you have missed out, because 99.99% of people who invest in markets will miss out investing at the bottom.
Yeah.
So it is not a skill that everyone has, nor is it that everyone has the same luck that you hold your temperament during a time when everyone is getting more and more desperate or despondent. Uh, so, so as an alternate to that is, if you are a normal human being like you and me, or at least I put myself in that, doing monthly SIP over 20-25 years will build you a nice little or nice tidy sum of money as such, uh, be which will be totally different and which will be totally kind of independent from what kind of temperament you have. So if you don't have a temperament to take big risk, don't feel bad. That's where most of us are. And for those, there is this opportunity of investing in SIP. For those who think they have a very great temperament plus luck, that they can identify the bottom and take a call to invest significant amount of money at the bottom, then uh, I think so they are the chosen one to uh, jump, at manifold as such.
Absolutely. So, Anup, one final question.
Mhm.
Slightly lateral, not pretty much aligned with the conversation we have just had, but still, because a couple of guys are asking, do you like what's your sense, or if you could just throw some color on how the US, stock market is doing, especially the big tech,
Mhm.
because people are looking at it on a regular basis, and the meltdown that has happened
Sure.
has many panicked. So, if you could just probably throw some color on US stocks, especially
Sure.
technology.
Sure. So I think the one of the things that I feel most against is we are in the mode of storytelling always, and we try to make everything very simple. So I'll give you a very simple example, and it is not very scientific, nor is it very complex, and markets are very complex. So between 2000 and 2010, India did better than US. Between 2010 and 2020, India has done much worse than US. If you look at various factors, one factor which comes out is during 2000 to 2010, for most period of time till 2008, US was having interest rates more than 4%. And between 2010 and 2020, US interest rate never crossed 4%. Now, there can be various other reasons. I have chosen one, so please don't beat me on that. As I said, this is trying to simplify a story. From 2022, we are seeing a new interest regime in US, and if you believe US Fed is going to be serious about what they have said, interest rates in US will stay above 2, 3, 4% for some period of time. And if you were to take the past pattern, India as a market does better when interest rates in US are 3, 4% as what we believe US will have at least for the next 2 to 3 years. Uh, Within that, there is this issue of big tech, which has become the most dominant form, which are the most dominant companies in the S&P 500, and which are also companies which have become very dominant. So what Google has achieved today, where they have got access to all your information on your phone, if you were to replace Google with government, would you allow? Just because Google offers you their very good service of web browsing free, you are willing to offer you are willing to allow them to get access to all your information without any. And whether it is India, whether it is Europe, and Europe may people are far more developed, matlab they are far more higher thought process than India, because we are still fighting for basic rights in India. There was a survey that if you have to pay for web browsing or give up your privacy, which one would you choose? And most number of people still chose free web browsing by giving up privacy. So while privacy has got big issues on how it is being used and commercialized, nobody wants to pay for this experience of Google or YouTube
Right.
or whatever they have. So I think so in big tech, the worry is over the next 5 years, how much will they get regulated? And I think so, if they get regulated more than what is being forecasted, then some of this halo that they have around them will disappear. Today, you
Yeah.
ask any fintech in India, what is their one of their purpose is data collection, because they want to do data analytics, because everyone believes that Google model can be replicated by them. If Google can make hundreds of billion of dollars, why can't I try $1 billion, boss? Because that is what their thought process is, that if you do any transaction, I will have records of it. Then I'll sell that information to someone else and get some money out of it. And we'll try to forecast what you're going to buy next or show ads on that. So I don't know. I'm not a tech person. I'm 55-year-old, so therefore I am very skeptical. So I think so. In US, the biggest issue is that no new bull market has seen the previous market winners lead that market, whether it is India, whether it is US. If we are getting into a new bull market in the US in the coming years, which are the sectors or which are the companies that will lead the bull market? In 2009, when India recovered from the 2008 GFC crisis, it was not the winners of 2003 to 2008 that led the market. It was a new set of winners. So, in terms of index investing is very good when the trend is very clear, because you can't beat an index when the trend is clear on the upside. But when
Mm.
the trend is unclear, you might have a period where the index doesn't do anything, but within the index there is a manthan which happens. And hopefully in that manthans, some of the active managers will be able to outperform.
Correct. Correct.
And once that trend is formed, then you'll find index investing will again outperform the case of active investing. So I think so over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we are in that phase of that new manthan. There is which is going to churn a new set of winners, and those who identify those winners will do better rather than those who do just passive investment by buying into the index as such. So that's my
Correct.
uh,
Correct. Absolutely. I feel that was fairly elaborate. So, Anup, this brings us to the close of this conversation. I feel this has been a really power packed conversation, although short, probably less than an hour, but we spoke about quite a variety of things so far. We covered the sectors, we went into depth with sectors, you gave your market outlook, and we took a couple of questions around very specific niche segments of the market. I feel this was a really power packed conversation, really insightful. There was a load of information that I heard for the first time, and there's a lot for me to take away, and I'm sure there's a lot even for the audience to take away. So thanks a lot for your valuable time. The insights, they're extremely precious, and we're grateful you took the time and shared your thoughts with us.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I wish all of you a very safe and happy 2023. And for your investors uh, and those who are your viewers, that they have a very profitable 2023 ahead. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We are hoping for the same and wish you a great 23 as well. Thank you, Anoop.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.